Hello and happy. Oh, what time is it? It's Wednesday. Recording this on Wednesday, but you'll probably be hearing this on Thursday. Drinking champagne here. Josh, joined by always as with Andrew Champagne here. Andrew, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. Before we get going, before we get started, Josh, I'm going a little bit rogue here. We didn't really talk about this in our pre production meeting, but I'd like to say thank you to a lot of people that helped us grow a lot as a network over this past year. You shared some numbers with me via Spotify because, of course, it's the end of the year and everybody's doing their end of year lists. Here's what I listened to, here's all of our stats and stuff. The numbers for On the Wrong Lead this year, at least on Spotify, are just outstanding. It's been an honor to be a part of that growth. It's been a lot of fun hosting the show and bringing you content most weeks. So thank you. I truly appreciate anybody that spent any amount of time on Spotify, on our YouTube channel, anywhere else you get your podcasts. Know that you are appreciated. That's the reason we do this stuff. We like talking horses. We like putting out a decent quality product. And God willing, and the creek don't rise, we'll be able to do that for a long, long time to come. So thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it.
Yep. As always, we always appreciate all the people who listen.
Can we
Make
hit the
sure
applause button just for the people? For the people.
and yeah. So make sure if you've listened to us, you like what we're doing. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit all the buttons, as Andrew likes, or I like to say when Andrew points down, like he's doing right now, for our video viewers. But Andrew, this is going to be kind of a short episode. This was, um, we're kind of in between trips here. You just got back from Vegas, and I, in about 6 hours, am flying out to, or I have to be at the airport in 6 hours. My flight's at 8 in the morning, so um, yeah, I'll be flying out here, in less than a day's worth of hours here, and I did want to get your feedback a little bit. I texted you while you were over there, but want to get your feedback a little bit with F1 being kind of torn down, and with all the stuff going on. How was the experience when you were out there?
First and foremost, you mentioned F1 being torn down. That is a false statement. They have not begun to tear things down from the
Hmm.
F1 race. Las Vegas, in the lead up to the F1 race, said, oh, yeah, it's going to take a little bit of time, probably 6 weeks, but we'll start right after the race ends and we'll be able to have everything taken down. Oh, probably right around New Year's. Before the race, Las Vegas went, yeah, 6 weeks isn't happening. We don't have an ETA. We have no idea. Josh, the closest thing that I can liken this to is, you ever have an annoying neighbor that leaves the Christmas lights up all year?
No.
Well, it's like that. I don't think that stuff is going to be taken down for quite a long time. There are still bridges over the strip that are whited out so people couldn't stop and watch the F1 race. Local politicians are pushing for a law that would actually make it illegal to stand in place on a footbridge. Think about that for a minute. The whole thing is the ultimate example of a fantastic idea on paper and a lousy idea in practice. And a week later, we were still feeling the effects of that. Add in Black Friday traffic, Thanksgiving traffic, and oh, yeah, your standard Las Vegas Boulevard on a weekend traffic. This was, to say not well thought out, is, I think, being charitable. I was very happy that we stayed off the strip. We stayed at Orleans. And no, I have never played in the Horse Player World Series. Shout out to our friend Emily Gullickson, who I know is watching and or listening to this. Just saying. Anyway, the Orleans was fine. $10 blackjack running 24/7 is always a plus. Uh, didn't have any massive stories like let him shoot it guy
Hmm.
from the March Madness expedition back in
Yeah.
March. But there was a fight a couple of rows in front of us at the
There you
race and
go.
sportsbook. Someone sat down in a reserved seat. Someone else didn't particularly like it.
Hmm.
And it was the ultimate hold me back, hold me back, hold me back fight, where two tough guys were trying to position themselves as tough guys, but in reality, neither one wanted a fight.
Yeah.
So the funniest footnote was a guy a couple chairs down who had to alter his route to go up to the window. And he walked behind my dad and I and went, I think I'll take the long way this time as all of that's going on. So that was funny. Enjoyed that. A couple of decent blackjack stories. I played blackjack at the Orleans on Sunday night next to a couple of people who were in town for the Chiefs Raiders game and who constantly doubled on 21 because it was a 6-5 table. Um, and when they asked me why I didn't do it, they tried to say, "Do you not like money?" I restrained myself from saying, "No, it's my podcast co host who doesn't like money." And what I said instead was, "Of course I don't like money. That's why I'm in Las Vegas." So that wound up going over pretty well. But all told, fantastic trip. Always great to be able to spend some time with my dad. We were able to have a really good time betting sports, betting races, playing blackjack, eating some really good food as well. The one thing that I will say that's a little bit of a disappointment, Josh, I have sworn for years on the Bacchanal buffet at Caesar's Palace. It is not cheap. And yes, it is a buffet, but it is the best buffet you will ever have in your life. Unfortunately, it has either gotten way too popular or the certain policies that they implement there don't get people in the door because we had a reservation for 5:45. We could not check in until 5:30. So we checked in and they put us in a long line of people that also had those reservations. Of course, if you're diamond or 7-star, you were able to go right in for a little while. This ended when the line for reservations got so long, it was blocking a nearby hallway, and they needed to clear the line out because otherwise it would have been a fire hazard. It took us an hour of waiting in line to get into the Bacchanal buffet. And yes, the food is fantastic. I had brisket from there that was absolutely incredible. Very little food in Las Vegas is worth an hour wait. And I think I may need to go to a lunch only stance at Bacchanal from this point forward because it's a lot of the same food. It's just a little cheaper. Maybe you're getting, not necessarily filet mignon when you get a cut of steak. So it's still great, but there are very few places in Vegas where that much time is a worthwhile investment.
Yeah, it's it's sad, right? Like you make a reservation, and I'm reminded of the classic Seinfeld line where or scene where he goes to get his car rental, and he's like, "Sounds like you know how to take a reservation, but you don't know how to keep a reservation."
It's really also the scene from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. And we did just go through Thanksgiving weekend where Steve Martin curses out the woman who played Herb Tarlick's wife on WKRP in Cincinnati at the car rental stop. Yeah, that's there are a number of comedians that have done something similar. By the way, we're talking about Steve Martin, and I know this is a little bit of a tangent. Josh, have you watched Only Murders in the Building?
I've seen a couple of episodes. My wife watches it, so
Keep watching it. You will love it.
um, yeah, with just out of curiosity. So I'm not much of a table game player. I'll play the occasional 3 card poker, especially with with Mark and our buddy Gary. Um, and I mostly like playing craps, but I've actually never played at a table. I've only played electronic ones. Reason being is because nowadays finding anything less than $15 or $25 is very difficult,
Mm-hmm.
especially on the strip. So, I'm more of a $5, craps player because unlike blackjack where, yes, you might put $10 if you're playing a $10 blackjack table, you might put $10 down and then worst case you're splitting or doubling, right? Or maybe you split a couple times, right?
Right.
As long as you're not playing the side bets, the max you're going to be in is like maybe $20 or $30 for a hand, and usually it's only when it's an advantage to you, right?
Right.
With craps, even if you're playing a $5 craps, even if you're only taking something like 2x odds, I mean, you're gonna get just that much out there on the table very, very often.
Hmm.
And it's very easy, I think, especially in craps, to just like, I remember playing the first time I played, and someone was kind of showing me how to play on the electronic table, and he's like, "Yeah, do that. All right, come, all right, take odds, take odds, take odds." And next thing you know, it's like I have all the numbers covered. I haven't hit a single point yet, and I'm like, I have like $75 out here, and there comes a seven, and you're like, I thought this is a $5 game, So, um, when you multiply that in multiples of two, three, five, depending on the limits, it's hard to stomach. Um, but with blackjack, right? You find a $10 table. What do you need? Like, how much money do you need in order to sit there and play? Like, what bankroll wise? What if I was to sit down at a black $10 blackjack table? How much money should I have?
Generally speaking, I go with 10 minimum bets. So if it's $100, if it's a $10 table, rather, my God, $100 table, Jesus, no. If it's a $10 table, I'll sit down with $100. If it's a $15 table, I'll sit down with 150. That's the general gist. And there are any number of little quirks that you can have. Unfortunately, Blackjack Switch, one of my favorite games that is so demented, even I get it. Um, that's not being spread nearly as much as it should be. Free bet blackjack has taken over. I do not find that nearly as fun. The one thing I will say about blackjack, and this surprised me a little bit because I hadn't particularly enjoyed this casino, but on Monday we went over to the strip because I had a couple hours to kill before my flight. We sat down at a $10 table at the Link. I hadn't played there a whole heck of a lot. The Link, at least at this blackjack table, had 5 seats, not six. Josh, for a guy my size, that elbow room, comfy chair, made for a pretty good experience. And we treaded water for 2.5 hours before I wound up catching my flight. So shout out to the Link for a very pleasant surprise.
Yeah, the only play time I've ever played live blackjack was at the Link. My this is a number of years ago at this point, but my wife was I don't remember if she was still in the room or if she was going shopping or something, and I'm like, all right, I got some time to kill. They had $5 blackjack, and so this tells you how long ago this was. It had to been,
Pre-pandemic for
yeah,
sure.
it's probably 5, 6 years ago at this point. And so I sit down, I put in $50, and I just literally lose hand after hand after hand. I probably the first I probably lose the first 7 or 8 hands in a row, right? I mean, my stack, I'm down to like my last 20, 25 bucks, and I hit a blackjack, and I'm like, oh, nice. I'm like, I wonder, and like in my head, I'm like, I wonder how they're gonna pay me the 50 cents. Um, and that's when I learned about 65 blackjack.
Yep.
Um, so I always kind of laugh because now obviously being more informed, right? You know what to avoid and stuff like that. Not that you know you can avoid it at this point,
Although
but
you can actually, if I may jump in, if you are in the northern side of the strip, go to Treasure Island. Treasure Island, for my money, best place you can play blackjack. They've got 3 to 2 games. They've got occasionally $10 3 to 2 games. It's as good as you're going to get. The environment there is very good. You wind up getting a lot of the people that are staying at the really ritzy places across the street, Wynn, Encore, Venetian, Palazzo, but don't want to play for $50 a hand. So they come over to Treasure Island and they'll play for 10, 15, maybe 25 a hand. It makes for a good environment. It's nice without being stuffy. It's also lower limits without being a dump. I really like Treasure Island if you're a blackjack player. Cannot recommend it highly enough. Really good environment there.
yeah, it's funny because there is a podcast I listen to called Crap Vegas, and it's a bunch of guys who it's two guys who go to Vegas and play craps all the time. Names tells you what the show's about.
It's either that
Um,
or a plumbing podcast.
but it's good. It's fun. I like the guys. But they really like to win, and like they'll talk about how much they bet. They bet in on win standards. They are not high rollers by any means, but they go to any other property. and the red carpet gets rolled out, and it's actually kind of funny. Like they talk about comping and stuff like that. Like it's interesting, but yeah, they talk about how like they have status with Win, and there are times where they can't stomach the limits there. They like to play at like the $50 level. And it's like sometimes, hey, they'll see $100, and it's like, all right, like, do we really want to play $100? Like sometimes they're like, all right, fine, we'll just have to take, bet less or whatever. But yeah, those properties are crazy. It's hearing, especially like, I don't know if you heard, speaking of F1, um, the Win did talk about, or someone had posted that the Win had a record amount of tips for the dealers that night, the night of the F1 race. Um, the rumor also had it that it was largely because of one person. So it's crazy what happens at that property.
It is
'Cause we,
how the other half lives for sure. The one other thing that I will say about Vegas before I forget, Josh, are you by any chance headed over to the Sphere?
no.
Okay. It's worth going once to see it, to see the movie that Darren Aronofsky made. It's a 50-minute thing. It's not a huge time investment. It's a pretty cool property. Having said that, if you're at all queasy about the future of artificial intelligence and what that may well do to the American people and the people of the world at large, some of the exhibits are not going to make you sleep any easier at night. It's really cool stuff, but it's also pretty frightening. The best part, though, is I was looking straight up because the movie that was made, it's this huge surround picture thing. At my size, I don't get to stretch those muscles in my neck nearly enough. So I was looking up like this. And when something happened on screen that involved like an airplane landing or somebody running by, the seats vibrated. So I got a nice lower back massage. So if you're my size, it's probably worth the investment to go at least once and check that out. But it's a cool venue. I don't know if I would ever do that show again, particularly, but it's probably worth seeing at least once. If you have a good night at the Bubble Craps table, maybe that's something you want to investigate.
Hey, we'll see. This is gonna be an interesting trip. With you know with we have a couple things planned. We're gonna have we're actually gonna get a massage on Friday, which is gonna be nice to
Fancy.
just kind of just kind of chill. Actually, that reminds me, maybe I should bring a bathing suit or something and just chill in the spa for a bit. But I'll have to make sure I toss that in my bag before I leave. But yeah, we're gonna do the spa one day. We're going to go see some Christmas Village thing that we did last year. That was at Resorts World. But last year we did it, and my wife was literally flying out that night. She was taking like a red eye home because she had to get back for work, and I was staying another day and a half, and with my buddy Gary, and we we took our time there, but it was just kind of rushed. So they had it at Resorts World, and I thought it was a great success, but apparently Resorts World didn't think so because it's not there anymore, or they didn't renew it. They didn't do it again. They're doing it back at the Las Vegas ballpark. I forget. I think it's in Summerlin or Henderson, one of the places. So
Yep.
we're doing that on Sunday, and then Monday we fly back Monday. So we got those 2 days kind of planned out. Tomorrow we get in pretty early, and then we get in pretty early, and we'll see we'll see where the day takes us. But yeah, it's gonna be fun. I, this is probably the longest I haven't been in quite some time because normally I go about every 3 months. But yeah, this year I think that's slowing down. I mean, we've talked about just how expensive everything is getting over there. I mean, just how
For
expensive
sure.
everything is getting in general. On top
Yep.
of that, but you talk about Bacchanal and other stuff, and I it's still a great time if I lived closer and it was a shorter flight or a short enough drive even. fine, but the 4 hour flight kind of makes going for just a weekend, like just like the two, like flying out Friday, coming back Sunday. It's just like too quick of a turnaround, like for how uncomfortable flying is, especially for guys of our size. So and being in the plane for that long, so I like to make it worth it, and so I try to go for at least 3, if not 4 nights. But it's yeah, it's just getting to be rather expensive. So we'll see how things are this time.
Do good, man. And the one thing that I will tell you, you know that I'm going to say this. Southwest, you're flying?
Hmm.
Get the Andrew seat.
That's the hope. That's the hope. We
For
got
the
842.
uninitiated out there, I should probably explain what the Andrew seat is, and then I promise we'll get into talking about some key horses on Thursday at Aqueduct. So, the Andrew seat on a Southwest Airlines plane is about the middle of the plane. There is a row of 3 seats where the middle seat does not have a seat in front of it. It's right over the wing. It's an exit row thing. Pro tip, if you are a guy of my size or near it, don't sit in the front. Look back. If that seat is open, beeline for it. Your experience flying will be so much more comfortable.
Yeah, we'll see if I'm able to if we're able to snag that seat. We've been pretty lucky and been able to get it the last couple times, but yeah, it seemed like we got later of a um a little bit later of a group than we normally do.
What did you
So
get?
I think like 842.
As long as you're in the A group, you've got a shot.
Um, but there was one other thing I wanted to ask you about Vegas, and I forgot. Oh, did you actually watch any of the race like on TV?
Very little. I mean, I am not overly passionate about F1. I saw a couple shots because my fiance, her family, and I were out to dinner at an
Hmm.
Italian restaurant, and we were waiting for the car to come around. So I was able to watch about 30, 45 seconds of the race.
Yeah, it was actually a very, very good race. It was very
Yeah,
exciting, and it looked great on TV, which
I
I
bet.
think is exactly what they wanted. So, um, but yeah, it's gonna be interesting how that saga kind of goes. Also, if you are like me and you do occasionally like um, drama, uh, take a look at or if you get a chance, there's some fun stuff about like vloggers and stuff like that. Covering the F1 race and talking about stuff. Someone called the first practice, the ending of the first practice, as tragic.
Hmm.
And I was reminded of the poor wording someone had on a horse going wrong that called it
The
a
word you're looking for, yeah, catastrophic. Yeah.
catastrophic breakdown. Yeah, so someone said tragic, and it was tragic because it ended early because of the manhole cover popped off.
In fairness, if you had spent tens of thousands of dollars on a practice ticket, it was probably pretty tragic for you.
Yep. Um, and yeah, there's just there like I don't know, it's been wild. Like seeing some of the reactions to it from vloggers, people who
Yep.
live there and stuff. Yeah, if you just like want to just see a peek into the human condition, like take a look at that.
Yep.
Just a lot of really really fun stuff there.
That
But
one was good. There was another hack that some people exposed. They got yelled at for standing on the bridges,
hmm
but you know what they can't yell at you for?
being on the escalator.
Being on the escalator, going down and up constantly. What are they going to do? Great hack. Absolutely great hack. And whoever came up with that, kudos to you, my friend.
Jeez. Anyways, yeah, so we'll have more next week um talking about my trip. We'll get a little bit more into the weeds, I think. But there's a bit of a carryover, I think you said tomorrow, Andrew, at Aqueduct.
$43,000 and some change into the pick six at Aqueduct. It is a $1 pick six, remember. It is not a $2 variant. It's not a jackpot variant. $1 pick six. And I thought this was a pretty interesting sequence because, to be honest, there's a couple races that look like absolute dartboard races where you throw your hand over your eyes, you just go like this, and you hope that it lands on something. But I don't know about you, but I was able to find a couple of spots to where I think you can take a stand, certainly with horses to use. And in one of those cases, a horse to single that's not going to be favored, or at least definitely should not be favored. It's a good sequence. I would not be shocked, Josh, if it carried again, but it's definitely worth your time.
Cool. And I honestly, with work and a bunch of other stuff, I've been running around all day. I didn't get much of a chance to handicap, but I know you did, and I know you said you have a couple of races you wanted to talk through, that you might have some keys in. So why don't you give the people what they want?
Give the people what they want. I think I can do that unless it's people wanting me to shut up about Lord Miles. That's never going to happen. Race number 5 is where my first key comes in. And this is actually my best bet of the sequence. It is the second leg of that pick 6, which starts in race number 4. Race number 5 is a $14,000 claiming event. Your two favorites on the inside, I am not sold by. Number 1, Vintage, has not been out of the barn since August. Vintage was last seen winning an allowance race. Yes, it was at Finger Lakes. This isn't a terribly huge class drop, at least as much as it looks on paper. But you have to think there were starter allowance races that this horse was eligible for, and he's in for 14. That's a little bit surprising to me. If Vintage wins, would that stun me? No, but I certainly don't think this horse should be 9-5. Horse number 2 is Axel Rose, and I'm not sold on that one either. The only strong performance this horse has had in the last 4 starts came at Monmouth for half of this claiming price in a field that, to be kind, was not all that great. You can possibly argue that Axel Rose needed the start last time out off a break of about 2.5 months, but I look at the race shape here. I think Vintage is going to go. I think Axel Rose is going to go. I think number 5, Embraceable Gal, is probably going to go. I wouldn't be surprised if number 6, Luna Loca, went as well. With that in mind, I want a closer, and the one that I'll focus on is number 8, Justin Nyquist, who was second at this level and route last time out, was beaten by a runaway winner, but beat Axel Rose on the square by 2.5 lengths. The race 2 back going 6 furlongs was pretty good, and I can excuse the race 3 back. She did not break well at all that day, and that was not a terribly weak race for that level. If you toss the 2 turf races that she ran earlier this year at Belmont, you've got a much more consistent racehorse. I think Justin Nyquist is going to get the setup that she wants. I think she could very well be the third choice, maybe the second choice, but she's not going to go favored. I think she's a separator single here, Josh, and this is my best bet of the sequence. Horse number 8 and race number 5, Justin Nyquist, 7-2 on the morning line, and I think we're going to get it.
Nice. And then I think there was another spot that you really liked in here too.
Yeah. Race number 8, a mile and 3/16. This is a $90,000 allowance, non-winners of 1 for the level. It is an excellent race. These are some stakes quality horses if you look a little bit deep. The horse that I'm going to be leaning on at a little bit of a price, and I don't think this horse is going to be the morning line price. I think it's going to come down just a little bit, probably 4-1, 9-2. But Josh, I really like number 3, Mystical Curlin, who seems to run pretty much the same race every single time out. Had an excuse last time out, was wide throughout, didn't have anything left, draws a much more favorable post in this spot, and the race 2 back at this level and route was very good. Second beat and a half length, an 85 buyer speed figure. A similar race could put this one in the winner's circle, and I think there's room for improvement at a little bit of a price. Mystical Curlin has some tactical speed in a race that doesn't have a lot of early zips signed on. I think Junior Alvarado is going to be able to work out whatever trip he wants. If Mystical Curlin breaks well, can go to the front. If Mystical Curlin breaks a step slowly, can stalk. I think Mystical Curlin, though, is going to be the one they have to run down turning for home. And it's not like there's a massive amount of pace signed on in here, so I think he'll have plenty left. This is a horse that I think you need to use in certainly the late pick 4, but also the pick 6 as well. I think this is a case where you've got a horse that's going to be 4-1, 9-2. I think you can make the argument that this horse should be favored.
Yeah, Mystical Curlin. I remember that horse from, was it Saratoga or was it Belmont, that just ran an absolutely like hole in the wind.
103 Beyer number in the slop, probably better over a wet track, but has established that that effort wasn't necessarily a fluke. This is a horse that won at Saratoga with a 91 Beyer speed figure in a starter allowance race where that day's second place finisher came back to win. This is a legitimate racehorse, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mystical Curlin shows up in some of those ungraded stakes races for older horses during the winter meet at Aqueduct. He's got a chance to pick up some really big checks.
Cool. Anything else you want to talk about before we sign off here on this short episode?
You have a good time in Vegas, man. Like, we have said this. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, there are certain things about Vegas that we don't agree with that they've changed. One other thing I will add, they took away the big odds board at Caesar's Palace. I had seen that they had taken it away at other Caesars properties like Flamingo and Harrah's and replaced them with those little tiny screens that you can't really see because they want people betting on their phones. They took out the big board at Caesar's Palace. I remember about 5 or 6 years ago, there was no better sports book in Vegas than at Caesar's Palace for my money. You had some seats, but you also had plenty of gathering room where people would just stand all day, and it was great. Poker room right off to the side. It was wonderful. They put in a bar with a whole bunch of video poker machines that's shaped like a kidney, and it took out a lot of the room to stand. They redid the video wall. The video wall looks great, but they took out the big board. I understand you want people betting on your phone. I understand that as a customer, if I'm betting on my phone, I'm probably doing 3 or 4 other things that involve spending money, and I'm a more valuable customer that way. I miss when you could just sit down at a sports book, look at the board, walk up to the window, get 5 or 6 tickets, whole bunch of drink tickets, and be set for an afternoon. With few exceptions, you can't do that on the Strip anymore. And that's a shame.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out some plans for March Madness. I have the hotel booked. I'm still waiting. I might wait till after Christmas to book the flight, but
yeah, we're still trying to figure out what we're going to do for a couple of different reasons, but we'll see. I mean, I know you have mentioned wanting to be around when someone inflicts themselves upon us with the "let him shoot it, bang"
yeah.
things, because those things seem to happen to me every March Madness. Everyone. It's uncanny. Things find me, okay? I don't go looking for a lot of these situations. They find me. It's been my struggle for, as of Saturday, 35 years.
Man. Well, anything else before last call for comments here, Andrew?
Oh, last call for Vegas. Ugh, that's words that should never be spoken. I mean, enjoy yourself, man. It really is a cool place, and keep me posted. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about next week on Drankin' Champagne when you get back. If you're out there playing that pick 6 carryover at Aqueduct, best of luck. Again, I would not be surprised if it carries, but really like that late pick 4 sequence too. So keep an eye out. I might have something up on my social medias talking about that sequence and the ways in which you can play it and hopefully make some money.
Cool. Well, as always, you can follow us at wrong_lead on Twitter, at Cherry Drink, at Andrew Champagne. Like, subscribe, hit all the buttons. And of course, we got to go out with the little EDM, peppy, whatever music here. So we'll catch you guys later. Check out your Spotify Unwrapped. Oh, I got to hit end.